Good evening, everyone. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular Planning and Zoning Board meeting. If I could have roll call, please, starting from my left.
Richard Lutz.
John Grant.
Anthony Sutton.
Carl S. Moore.
Rick Varone.
Tom Nickel.
Jim Quish.
And I'm Scott Marlowe, and we're joined by David Sulka, City Planner, as well as Phyllis Leggett, the Board Clerk. Before we get started with too many things on the agenda here, I was asked to consider putting a few items on the agenda. One is adding another 824 to the agenda tonight. Mr. Sulkas, if you could just tell us what that's about.
Yeah, if you could add to the agenda a new 8-24 approval. This is for a sidewalk easement along Gulf Street for a city project.
Is there a motion to put that on the agenda?
So moved.
A second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we'll add that to the agenda. One of the other items is Mr. Grant asked if we could reorder the agenda where we have under item E 2 and 3. He would like to have us put that before we talk about item 1. So if there's a motion to reorder the agenda.
I move to reorder the agenda.
Second, Mr. Quish. All in favor? Very good, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And the last one that is more a housekeeping issue is when we approved the Fig Cooking School last meeting, we never established an effective date for it. So I just want to, as a housekeeping matter, that it would be recorded as 4/14/17.
Mm-hmm. For clarification, Mr. Chair, that is the effective date of the regulation change.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Not that they're going to open, or correct. So I don't believe we need a vote on that. That's more just a housekeeping issue. So, on to our agenda. With the new 824 that we were just added, Mr. Sulkas, is there someone here who will present that?
Well, I've handed out to you a copy
Correct.
of the easement that the city proposes along Gulf Street. You'll notice it's just an area in red. If you have any questions about it, the city engineer is here to answer those questions.
I'm not sure if there's questions, but possibly if the city engineer could just review it with us a minute would be good.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Greg Podleski. I'm the city engineer. What we're trying to do is the city is going to...
Excuse me, could you just move the mic a little closer? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, the city's working on Gulf Street and going to do some improvements on it, some milling and paving, some new sidewalks, improvements in the sidewalks. As you're aware, this area of Gulf Street, which is right above the Gulf Pond Bridge, is a fairly sharp turn, and the current sidewalk is right along the edge of the traveled way with a guide rail through there. And what we're seeking to do is actually move the sidewalk closer to Gulf Pond. A portion of that would actually be a boardwalk because of the grades to enhance pedestrian safety in that area. Toward that end, Mr. Saley approached the owners of the subject property, and they agreed to grant an easement to the city for that purpose. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you. Mr. Sulkus, do you have any comments on? No. Is there questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a quick
Yes,
question.
Mr. Lutz.
Yeah. I can, over the last couple of days, the city's been there farther up, taking down trees in one section. Is that because you're going to be straightening out something else there?
I have no knowledge of that, I'm sorry. It's, as far as I know, it's unrelated.
Is there other questions from the board? No, seeing none. We need a motion on this? Okay, I'd entertain a motion on, yes, Mr. Quish.
Yes, I would move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is item C, CGS 8-24 approval, referral pursuant to CGS 8-24 to authorize the Connecticut Green Bank, its affiliates, designees, and/or assignees to site, own, operate, and maintain a solar array at Joseph A. Foreign High School, Jonathan Law High School, East Shore Middle School, and Mathewson Elementary School.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, this is strictly to put up the, to get into an agreement to put in solar panels on those 4 schools. If you have questions about them, we have some people here from the Board of Ed who can answer them.
Okay, again, I think it would be good just to have someone present. Good evening, Steve.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. For the record, my name is Stephen Studer. I'm here on behalf of the Board of Education. My office address is 75 Broad Street, Milford, Connecticut. And as Mr. Sulkus said, this is an application to locate rooftop solar arrays at the 4 schools that were mentioned. The reason we're here seeking 8-24 approval is because, as you probably do know, the schools are owned by the city itself. They're under the possession, or in the possession rather, control and responsibility charge, if you will, of the Board of Education for education purposes. But nonetheless, it's municipal property, and 8-24 says that whenever one municipal agency wants to substantially improve a school, a referral should be made to the Planning and Zoning Commission for 8-24 approval. So even though there are no substantial out-of-pocket costs to the city or the Board of Education, because the developer is putting in the solar arrays at these 4 schools at its cost, and then the Board of Education is simply buying the electricity at a significantly lower rate than what it's currently paying for electricity now through the local electric distribution company. And it also obviously will be improving its carbon footprint and doing something which is environmentally sustainable and responsible. So for those reasons, we're here before you to ask for your approval as planners that solar panels on top of schools is a good idea.
Thank you. Mr. Sulkus, do you have any comments?
I couldn't have said it better.
Is there questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Moore.
What would happen in the case of an event of any roof damages? Is the city responsible?
It's a good question. No, the city is not responsible. The long and the short of it is all the roofs have been evaluated both for integrity structurally as well as for the soundness of the roof. And there's a pre-installation and a post-installation survey done with the roofing company to ensure that the roof warranty remains in effect for the entire term and to make sure that there are no problems. And we've got a representative of the developer here if you really want all of the nits and gnats, but in general it is something that's been considered, and there's no detriment to the city or the Board of Education.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Brown.
Who owns the solar paneling once it's installed?
The developer, or it's assigned, it's S&E. It makes no sense for a not-for-profit or a municipal entity to own a solar array like this, because the real benefits are in the ZRECs and the tax credits, all of which go to the for-profit entity. So essentially, they maintain it, they operate it. If there's any problems with it, it's their responsibility. We just reap the benefits of the carbon-free, less expensive electricity.
Are there other questions? Yes.
Does Connecticut Green Bank have any other installations in Milford at this time, or proposed installations?
I'm not certain. The Milford Library, I'm told? The library?
Anywhere in Milford? Lighting, lights, public lights, library, town
Yes.
hall?
No, the Milford Library. They do own the solar panels on top of the Milford Library, I am told.
You're not into fuel cells?
No.
Just a quick question. Is it a long-term lease with these, or how does that really work?
It's not a lease per se. It's a 20-year contract to purchase all of the electricity that the solar panels produce. And it can be extended, but it's a minimum of 20 years.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Barone.
What's the lifespan of these, if you have a 20-year agreement?
I'm not certain. 25 years.
And if these fail at the end of 20 years, what happens then?
Well, at the end of the term, they're removed. Let me strike that. I believe at the end of the term, we would have the option to acquire it for a pre-arranged sum of money, or we could say to them, simply take it off, and we have our school back as it was.
Are there other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Quish.
Yeah, I would move to approve as submitted.
Second.
Mr. Grant, thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? A motion carries. Thank you.
Well, thank you for hearing us tonight. Take care.
Next item on the agenda is item D, CGS 8-24 approval, 655 Bridgeport Avenue. Oh, I thought we were going to do that before E.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Sorry.
to accept the drainage easement and two small portions of the property to be deeded to the city as shown on the plans. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Raymond A. Macaluso. I'm the owner of Westcott and Mapes Incorporated Consulting Engineers located at 142 Temple Street in New Haven. I'm here on behalf of Sanford Realty, LLC. They are the owners of Chevrolet of Milford. And this goes back for some time, 2 years. I was before the board back in September 15th for a site plan review for temporary parking. Sanford Realty bought the Knights of Columbus building at 625 Bridgeport Avenue and demolished it and had temporary parking. And we came before you for an 8-24 approval to abandon a portion of Twin Oaks Terrace at your meeting on June 7th, 2016, which you approved for the abandonment. And then we went to the Board of Aldermen on September 12th, 2016, and received their approval to abandon the road. What we're doing is we are presenting to the city attorney the abandonment, a portion of the abandonment showing the sewer easement that already exists that was Twin Oaks Terrace. What we have to do is we're adding a supplemental drainage easement which now we need your approval for an 8-24 to tie into the state drainage system. So this area here is the drainage, which we need your approval for the 824, which then we would go on to the Board of Aldermen. But again, you already approved the abandonment of the road for us to construct a cul-de-sac, and this is more of a formality to go for the drainage easement.
Thank you. Mr. Sulkus, you have comments?
No, this is just following through with the natural result of the abandonment is that we have to get the easement, for the system.
Are there questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Quish.
So the way I read this, are we on D1? Is that where we are? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
This is just this is item D, and we're dealing with just the easement right now.
Oh, I don't see it on my... Nope, item D?
Well, you don't have the right one, that's why. You have an old one.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarification.
Are there any questions on this? It's item D. It was on a new agenda or a revised agenda that was handed out. Are there any questions, though? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on item D. Mr. Grant.
I make a motion to approve CGS 824- approval for the drainage easement at 655 Bridgeport Avenue.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, under item E, we reordered the agenda, so we will talk about the proposed text regulation changes first. And Mr. Grant, would you like to fill us in on that?
Okay. A few months back, the subcommittee submitted to the board a couple of regulation changes, one to add blade signs to our regulations, and the other was to amend the section for authority where the public can submit to the P&Z department requests for changes in the regulations. They went through all the city agencies and state agencies, and everybody came back saying they had no problems with either one of the changes. So they are before us for a public hearing tonight and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Mr. Sulkus, do you have comments?
I think they're good changes, especially the blade sign proposal. We've had many merchants ask us about that. And when we talk about pedestrian scale development, there's signs that are much more, they're oriented for pedestrian use, which is important to the overall streetscape. And then the other regulation, 10.1 under authority, is important because our regulations really didn't clearly address the ability of the public to come in and ask for text changes. It was done by informally under the language that was there, and this just makes it a more formal and a more correct process.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board on either of these text regulation changes? Right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve these two text
Mr.
regulations?
Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a public hearing. You have to open the public hearing.
I'm very sorry. This is a public hearing, so what we would do is I'll combine the two and three, the blade sign, section 5.3.5.9 and Article 10 Amendment, Section 10.1 Authority. If there was anyone from the public that would like to address either one of these items in favor of them first. Seeing none, if there is anyone that would like to address them is in opposition to either of these text amendment changes. Okay. Seeing none, I guess our next step is to
Close the public hearing.
close the public hearing and to ask for a motion to, on these two regulation changes. Mr. Quish.
I'd like to make a motion to approve them.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Grant. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes.
And Mr. Chair, just for clarification for the record, the board just approved section 5.3.5.9, section 5.37.1, and Article 10, Amendment Section 10.1. What would the date of, we have to give you the date that they would become I would recommend a date of April 21st for them to become effective.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is
That's too soon, Dave.
28th.
Okay, we'll change that to 4/28, that this regulation change would be effective. Thank you. Next item is public hearing. 655 Bridgeport Avenue, Zone CDD-3, petition of Raymond A. Macaluso for a zone line adjustment from the RO zone to the CDD-3 zone for auto dealership parking lot expansion on map 25, block 207, parcels 41, 42A.
Excuse me.
Yes.
It's the lot line adjustment.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
What is his site plan?
I said zone line.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Zone line adjustment, parcels 41, 42A, and 44, of which Sanford Realty LLC is the owner. Mr. Macaluso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
okay.
and members of the board. Again, for the record, my name is Raymond A. Macaluso. I'm the owner of Westcott Mapes Incorporated, consulting engineers located at 142 Temple Street in New Haven. And I'm here representing Sanford Realty LLC, owners of Chevrolet of Milford. Again, we requested a abandonment of a portion of Twin Oaks Terrace back with your approval back on June 7, 2016. And then on September 12, 2016, we received the final approval from the Board of Aldermen. And part of that request was to have Sanford Realty LLC construct the complete cul-de-sac on Twin Oaks at all costs to him, to them, and not to the city at all. One of the items that we had, he purchased one of the properties at Twin Oaks, and it's shown here in red. when I went back into the records, the board back in November 20th, 2007, changed Twin Oaks Terrace from a CDD3 to an RO zone. And it was changed back then to allow people to sell their properties. Apparently there was a property owner that was going to build a home, so he came before the board, and the board concluded to change Twin Oaks from the CDD3, which it was in, to the RO. Sanford Realty does not want to change the other properties. They would like to just change their one property they purchased so we could continue to build the cul-de-sac. So we're respectfully requesting the board to go from an RO back to the CDD3, which then will be incorporated into the property, and then we're going to do one complete lot line adjustment. When I get to the site plan, you'll see it'll be one contiguous piece. Has no intention of changing the rest of the Twin Oaks properties, only that one property on Twin Oaks that they had purchased to accomplish the abandonment of the road. So we have to go through the process, and again, it was CDD3 from the very beginning, changed to the RO, and that's why I'm respectfully requesting that one lot go to back to the CDD3 and have the other properties remain as such. And Mr. Sulkus could probably bring you more up to date on that. As far as the letters, they all went out to all the residents within the proposed radius. The sign was posted. Ms. Leggett has everything in her file, so we made all the accomplishments that we're supposed to for the notice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Sulkus.
Yeah, the reason why the board changed the zone from the CDD3 to the RO was that housing is actually prohibited in the CDD3. So you had people whose properties were made pre-existing non-conforming, and then there was a lot that a developer wanted to develop. So the board, changed the whole street back to the RO, so that developer, could develop that property.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, this is a public hearing, and I would invite anyone from the public to speak on this issue. If you're here to speak for or against it, if you could approach the podium, state your name and address, and address all the comments to the commission. And so I would invite anyone who is in favor of this to approach the podium first. All right, seeing no one, anyone who is against this proposal, if you could approach the podium and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Gallo. I live at 25 Sycamore Drive. I'm against this zone change. I also have a petition here from over 100 neighbors in our area that are against it. I'd like to give you a copy, or I'll give you the original.
Thank you.
This change is not in the best interest of our neighborhood. There's no guarantee who will own the property in years to come, and that lot would now be commercial, and any kind of commercial building could be built behind our houses. He mentioned that they own a few of the properties there, and if they change this one zone, who's to say down the road, they might change other houses if people move out, and Sycamore Road would now be on Bridgeport Avenue. I've lived here for 33 years, and when I first moved in here, we had a lot of acreage all around us. The Chevy company has encroached more and more and more into our backyards on Sycamore Road. I live behind the dealership, and I took a picture of what it looks like at night with all the lights in my backyard. I'll pass it up to you. And also my next door neighbor had a tree fall down from the lot on the Chevy side into her backyard. So it's kind of open here where you could see where the dealership is now, and the proposed lot is closer to our property line. This is her fence that fell down, and right here is where they want to put what they're proposing to put there. It's too close. We're not in favor of it. We have a beautiful neighborhood, and between the lighting, the PA system, all the bangs from cars coming off the trailers, it's noisy enough. We don't need anything closer to our property lines. There is open space behind some of our houses on Sycamore, but that open space doesn't even serve as a buffer anymore because there's so many invasive plants growing in there, killing what greenery is there. So nobody maintains it or anything. Eventually, that's just going to be wide open to Bridgeport Avenue. We're trying to save our neighborhood. We don't approve of any kind of zone change for this piece of land. Here are the
Excuse me, you need to talk into a microphone, and you should submit the photos to the secretary.
I had hoped that more residents would come tonight, but for some unknown reason they couldn't make it, but I have over 100 people that are against that. So I hope we really take that into account, that we live here too, not just businesses that want to expand. And in my eyes, I could see the dealership just wanting that whole area. I also have a letter from Mr. and Mrs. Steve Kraftmiller. They're elderly, and they've been with me since 1988, trying to stop all the zone changes that this dealership has already gotten. They could not make it tonight, but they wrote a letter. She asked me to give it to you, so I'd like to do that.
That's fine. Thank you.
Let me see if I left out anything. I think basically that's it. I mean, we're just all very, very concerned. I mean, I've talked to people that live over on Meadows End Road, and they take walks with their grandchildren and everybody through our road because it's like a circle, and they don't want to see Bridgeport Avenue. I mean, it's blocked now with the houses and the residential property there, and we think it should just be left alone. That's basically all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against this proposal? Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. My name's Michelle Zulowski. I'm the record owner of 31 Sycamore Road. I believe the notices indicated that the previous owner was record owner, but it is now myself, Michelle Zulowski. So I technically didn't get proper notice, but I am here and I'm aware that this is happening, so I'll proceed. I'd argue that this is a case of spot zoning. I believe it affects the use of just a particular parcel of land. It's not related to the general plan of the community as a whole. I'd feel as if the controlling test should be a benefit not just to the applicant, but for the benefit of the community. And clearly that's not happening, as we have a petition with over 100 signatures. I think the residential property should maintain a residential neighborhood. There's houses all along Twin Oaks. A friend of mine is actually building the house next to this particular parcel, and that property is significantly affected, as a potential new homeowner would be up against a car wash / detail shop. My property is directly behind where this would occur, and I don't particularly want to see this 18-foot tall building behind me, as I just bought this house and I'm looking to vastly improve it and invest a lot of money into it. And I'm very concerned about the depreciation of my home's value as well as the neighborhood's values, particularly Twin Oaks and all of us on Sycamore Road directly behind this area. The intent at the last change was for it to be a residential purpose, and I think it should remain that residential zone. I'm legitimately fearful of a future use of this parcel. If the Chevy dealership were to sell and then that car wash gets knocked down and something else comes, there could be a variety of other things that might go there in the future. So I know that's not imminent for you now, but it is something that I have to address at this point in time, as once this zone changes, it's going to remain that way. So we need to be wary of that. I believe that the applicant can maintain a car wash or detail shop off-site. I mean, Milford has probably 15 to 25 car washes. I haven't really done that research, but I believe it's possible for them to maintain their vehicles off-site. I'm sure plenty of other dealerships do the same thing. I don't believe the business should jut out anymore into a residential zone. It doesn't serve a useful purpose for businesses on Bridgeport Ave. It would just be for their own commercial need. And I'm not confident that their proposed plan may even remain as is. They may make changes to it. I see the plan now having no lighting addressed on it for, on the outside of the building. What if that changes? And then I'm directly behind this. So if you change that zone and allow that to happen, I may have a bright light in my kitchen that I'm about to build. I think that needs to be addressed. And I'm just worried about my neighbor, Phyllis Gallo, who had just stood up here and said that she argued with the city for 30 years about these different zone changes. And as a new homeowner, I don't want to have a 30-year battle. I want to be happy in the house that I just purchased. I just had a variance for my own garage, and that was troublesome to obtain. So I would hope that this type of change is a little more difficult for you all to pass or object on. I request that you do not approve the application.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Scott Rohrig, 7 Flaxman Lane, Milford. September 8th, 1992. That's when all the special permits, the special exceptions, the permits to let this business operate on the corner there. That's when they started, 15 years ago. I'm not in favor of it. It's not good for the Sycamore residents. The city gave up a road. There's going to be 11 parking spots closest to my restaurant, which will be public parking for everybody in the neighborhood. Nobody is winning here. Nobody is getting anything, especially the city, especially the people from Sycamore. All the points that were made to you by the eloquence of the ladies is exactly how it is. There is not going to be any problems fixed here. The business of the Chevy dealership is a beautiful business. Probably a good neighbor and a taxpayer for the city. But they're not a good neighbor for the neighbors. And it has to stop somewhere. They're mad. One time I was in a meeting here and Ben Blake said, when somebody wants a variance or an exception, it's not just because it's good for one person, does not mean that it's going to be approved if it's not good for the majority or a good amount of people. Verbatim, not exact words, but in this room, that's what was said. That we're not going to make changes just for changes. So the neighbors' complaints have been falling on deaf ears for years. Approval, 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 approval. They want approval for them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Good evening.
Good evening. Thomas Rebello, that's R-E-B-E-L-L-O, 147 Meadows End Road. About this thing, the dealership actually knew that, yes, it was already zoned for a residential area. Oh, if he gets this granted, what makes him say he's not going to buy another lot and keep encroaching on other, residence areas before that actually moves on to Sycamore, which is not too far from Meadows End if you keep going by that. So I'm just highly against this, and I wish the board would reconsider this. And I thought Milford was a family town instead of commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kim Gravel. I live at 22 Meadows End Road. And I just want you to know, when I look out my front door, I look to the right, and there's the car dealership. My view is from the former Armelino's restaurant, and it's just too much. It's expanding, and it's noisy, and the car alarms, and the lights, and I'm totally against this. So is my husband, and I really hope the board listens to everything, because we live in that area. This is our life. Our kids live there, and we're totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? Good evening.
Hi, Kimberly Rebello, 147 Meadows End Road. I just wanted to say that I am against this zoning change. I think everybody who spoke, they all have really good points. So I don't want to reiterate all of that, but I'm against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against this proposal? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Macaluso, I believe you have an opportunity to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard from Sycamore, Meadows End Road, but all the residents on Twin Oaks approved this abandonment and were in favor of what's going on with the Chevy dealership. And they live right on Twin Oaks. If you look at the Sycamore, which is over here, this is the requested zone change, the one property. The intent of Chevrolet of Milford is not to purchase any more properties. They were approached, they declined. They just wanted this one piece that they purchased. You have over an acre of open space, the green area. One of the residents said it's not maintained. Well, it's not Chevrolet of Milford to maintain it. It was given as open space. There is access to that area. Anybody could go in, maintain it, plant, whatever they wanted. This is 1 acre of property between the dealership that was given to the city of Milford for protection for the Sycamore residents. That's when it was a Saab dealership. That was given back in at that time when it was approved. I didn't want to get into the site plan, but I guess I should. The car wash that one of the residents was talking about is not a public car wash, or it's for the dealership. When you bring your car into service, they want to do their vehicles there. It's not going to be open to the public. It's all maintained by the dealership. If you look at the site plan, the landscaping that, again, was approved by Twin Oaks, they wanted all these arborvitaes as a buffer with a berm. And we continued it back towards Sycamore and in here. So as far as a buffer, we're giving them the buffer. There's no paging system that's going to be on that property. There never was. I think they're here in the other dealership across the street or down the road. And as far as the lighting plan, it's all in your site plans. Zero increase, everything. We've met all the compliances. I do feel for the residents, I understand, but this was a CDD3 zone. It went to an RO, residential office. So you still could have businesses in there. It's not strictly residential. And as far as the parking, Mr. Rourke talked about, Chevrolet of Milford is deeding those parking spaces to the general public, which he is going to benefit from at Lassie's restaurant. The dealership did not have to deed those properties. I mean, that property to put in 11 parking spaces. He approached us, and the dealership conceded. The police department said 11. He wanted to go all the way around the whole cul-de-sac. PD said no. And again, I should get into the site plan. We're strictly talking about the zone change, but again, he brought it up. I want clarification on that if I could. So that was a concession that the owner gave to the city of Milford. Yes, they abandoned the road. You approved it. Board of Aldermen approved it. He's doing all the work. He's moving all the utilities, everything that he could do to satisfy the property owners and the property owners in the back. I don't know how much more I could say, but again, it was a CDD3 zone. He just wants to put it back to where it was and continue his business, again, with all the buffer and everything else. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that has spoken already that would like to address any of the comments that were just said? You may approach and state your name again, please, and add.
Scott Rohrig, Flaxmill Lane. I'm the owner of Lassie's Restaurant. I would think the rebuttal I would have to say is the reason the Twin Oaks people are not here is because they're getting something. So they're getting payola. They're getting their buffer. They're getting the trees. Okay, they're getting the parking lot that's going to be in front of my restaurant. That's not my parking lot. I've already have neighbors that say they are going to come and park their cars down in that lot, if you want to call it a lot, on the city street. As for the property that's being given for that parking spaces, I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that property is where a city has a right-of-way 10 foot in, 10 to 12 foot in, that the Zufle brothers will fix up so that they can have the 10 spots that go around in front of their building to the end of the cul-de-sac. The point is, it's a no-win situation. We're getting 10 spots on that side near the restaurant, but all the on-street parking is being taken away because of the cul-de-sac. It's a zero net gain. Okay? I'm not here to complain about parking at all. I would rather that the cul-de-sac didn't go through. Then there's parking all the way around. That's what I preferred as a resident, but I don't have to get my way. But, you know, because the Twin Oaks people are not here, and I'm not going to speak for them, but they're getting a buffer, they're getting trees, they're getting something pretty compared to what it is right now, which you should go tomorrow and go take a look at it. So that's all the rebuttal I have on that. If I'm wrong on something, please correct me.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address it?
Phyllis Gallo, 25 Sycamore Road. He had mentioned that they gave up an acre of land for open space, I believe that's what he said. Well, it's an acre of land. I'm not sure on that myself, but if it is, like he said, it doesn't just go from our backyards to the dealership or where that lot is. That acre of land is stretched out behind 4 houses and down to Meadows End Road. There's only 200 feet from my backyard to the open lot, the open space. There's only 200 feet. And it's not maintained by the city because when they quick deeded it to the city of Milford, it was to be naturally kept, you know, just nature. And there's a lot of invasive plants and everything that are just taking over right now. And unfortunately, maybe the city of Milford doesn't have the money, or they just go by what was in the deed when they got it, that it's to be done naturally. We were thinking of getting residents back there to clean it out and clean it up and all, but we haven't gotten that far. The Kraft Millers spoke to Steve Johnson about this. I have a letter from Steve Johnson telling what a mess that open space is. Also, he had mentioned that all the people on Twin Oaks is for this. If you look at my petition, there is a signature from Twin Oaks on there that is not in favor of this zone change. She was devastated to hear that there might be a car wash. At the time, I didn't know exactly that it was going to be a car wash. This was earlier in my petition. But somebody had told me that, and I mentioned it to her, and she doesn't want a car wash that close to her house, because they're right there where the car wash is going to be, right where that cul-de-sac ends is where they're planning to do this. So please take into consideration, there's over 100 people that do not want the zone change. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak, that has already and would like to address any comments made? All right, seeing none, Mr. Macaluso, I believe you have an opportunity to give a final rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, again, they don't know what the open space is. It's on the plan. It's there. It's deeded. Again, it's not Chevrolet Milford's responsibility to take care of it. The 11 parking spaces that are on the street, again, go onto their property, which they had to deed to the city of Milford, a portion of. So this, again, is what the residents on Twin Oaks signed off on. I don't know who that property owner is, but in your file, when I came in for the abandonment, every resident on Twin Oaks signed off on it, and there's a map in there with their signatures. Again, the car wash is not going to be open to the public. It's an ancillary building for the dealership only. That's all we're doing. And that's all I could say, Mr. Chairman, till the site plan.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Quish.
So I see here the language says this is a petition for auto dealership parking lot expansion. Why doesn't it say a zone change to allow for a car wash?
Because it is for a parking expansion with the ancillary car wash. It's on the site plans.
Right, but the
it's
site
on
plan,
the site plan.
The site plan is a separate.
Right, but it's shown on the site plan. The car wash is falling on that particular.
I understand.
Subject property.
It's deceptive.
And
it's not truthful. This is saying parking lot expansion, and for someone who's in the public who reads this and decides whether or not to come, they're saying, well, it's just a parking lot. And now if they said it was for a car wash, they may have a different opinion. So for me, this is dishonest.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Cush, you have to speak to Mr. Solkis, who you know, I did not write the, you know, so
I'm
just
not
for
pointing a finger at
clarification-
anyone. I'm just saying the language is not honest.
Are there other questions from the board? Yes.
Considering the size of that property and the development over the last several years, why do you find it necessary to take that piece of land that does create a buffer for the residents over on Sycamore? Why do you find it necessary to have that particular piece of property? Is there not any space on the 4.5 acres you already have?
No, that also takes into consideration the cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sac cuts into that property, to that one little piece that they
Okay,
purchased.
so there isn't any other place on that property where you can put a couple of parking spots and this
Well,
car wash?
If you're asking me if we could move the car wash, the answer is probably yes, if that's the component. But we like to go forward again with the abandonment as approved. If the board so chooses not to give the zone change, then the car wash, you know, obviously would not be constructed. We'll eliminate it from the site plan and go forward. To be honest with you, there's too much other things that have to be done to the site. And if it's the car wash that everybody's in disagreement with, we'll just go forward without the car wash and have the parking spaces and the buffer as shown.
I'm not so sure it's necessarily the car wash, but again, that language is not on the paper that we're looking at here. So that's why I brought that up. Thank you.
Are there other questions from the board? Yes, Mr. Quish.
I'd like to hear the specific language on the petition, see if that enlightens us at all, on what the 100 people signed.
I can read what the petition, what the people that signed this petition, it says, "We, the undersigned, petition against a proposed zone change. We do not want encroachment into residential property." That's what I see this says. So that would be what the people that objected and signed this were signing to.
Thank you.
Mr. Sulkus, we can't do that anymore. I'm sorry, we can't. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, that was just a notice that went out, but I can read that too. That's not a problem at all. It's just basically saying Westcott and Mapes Inc. Consulting Engineers is acting as agent for Sanford Realty LLC, the property owner of the subject property known as 18 Twin Oaks Terrace in Milford, Connecticut. The subject property is also identified as map 25, block 207, and parcel 44 of the Milford Assessor's map. We wish to notify you that on April 4th, 2017 at 7:30 p.m., Milford Planning and Zoning meeting located at 110 River Street. The request will be made to change the zone of the .22 plus or minus acre subject property from the RO zone to the CDD 3 zone. The meeting is open to the public, and then under that was what I read before.
Thank you, exactly what I wanted.
If there's no other questions, does the board see a reason why we shouldn't close the public hearing? Yes, Mr. Quish.
You know, we've had good luck in the past where developers get another chance to work with neighbors, like they work with the neighbors to get the berm and the trees. Now we have another set of neighbors actually on a street that abuts the property from the south, or anyway, okay. There are people here who feel disenfranchised, and it might be a benefit to everyone if the parties could get together. We have this buffer space that's not acting as it was intended. through no fault of anyone, but maybe the developer could address that and somehow put trees in his own property along that, or agree to maintain that space. There's a lot of options that they could think up to try to make peace, so to speak.
Mr. Solkis, how would we procedurally?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
I have another question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lutz.
Yeah, I have another question. Did a portion of this property that you acquired, was it needed to complete the cul-de-sac?
Yes, it's also part of that.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, if it's an RO zone, then it can't be used for either a parking lot or a car wash if it stays RO. Am I correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Thank you.
To answer your question, Mr. Chair, the board can't recommend to an applicant that they do something with someone else's property. So the applicant does not own or control the city of Milford open space that's there. That land was given to the city owns it. The city should maintain it, probably better than how they are maintaining it, as we hear. But if the expectation is that an applicant, is a condition for them to get an answer from this board, is that they work with the neighbors to do something with city land, that's not what we do.
All right, thank you. Yes, Mr. Cush.
I don't know, the applicant said that anyone can go and work in that land, and so that was the thought that was sponsored or started with the applicant. So they could actually put a berm and put trees on their own land that give protection to the neighbors who feel aggrieved at this. And my point is that if they get together and talk it out, the applicant may be able to win over the people who are presently feeling disenfranchised. That's what I would advocate.
All right. Yes, Mr. Grant.
I got a question for Mr. Maxos. When looking at the site plan, am I correct that the back peak corner of lot 18 actually is 10 or 15 feet actually away from the lot lines on Sycamore? It actually doesn't back up. That piece of property does not, the back corner does not touch any of the property lines on Sycamore, correct? There's actually, right, so it touches into the open space, right? So basically, all the lots on Sycamore still, even if this was a zone change, would still have residential property on the back side of their fence. Right, okay. So, yeah, that piece of property doesn't touch Sycamore property at all.
Are there other questions from the board? Excuse me, Mr. Sulkus, Mr. Cush. Are there other questions on this item? Do we want to close this as a public hearing? We'll close this as a public hearing. So there can be no further comments on this. So I would entertain a motion, since this is being closed, to, if anyone would like to act on this proposal.
I have a motion.
Yes.
I have a motion that we deny.
Okay, there's a motion.
I second.
Mr. Barone?
Mr. Verone. So there is a motion to deny this proposed zone change. Is there any comments on the motion?
Yes. In my opinion, what happened here was that the car dealership bought the lot so that they can complete the cul-de-sac, which they agreed to complete. They took a chance. In other words, when you buy something that's in a zone and you know it's not in the zone, it's not a commercial zone, you know it's a residential zone, then you have the possibility that you're not going to be able to use it for commercial purposes. I agree with the neighborhood that at some point there has to be a stop. In other words, you have an awful lot of land there. There's certainly a lot of places where you could put a car wash if you wanted to. If it was me and I was the car company, I would offer to donate the piece of property that they're not going to use for the cul-de-sac, because it could co-join into the open space that already exists. So, in my opinion, I think we should deny this.
Thank you. Are there other comments on the motion? Seeing none, there's a motion on the table to deny this, and it has been seconded. All in favor of denying? Any in favor or opposed to the motion? Okay, the motion that was on the table is to deny the application or the proposed zone change, and that has been rejected. Okay, on to our next item. Item F is 655 Bridgeport Avenue, CDD-3 petition of Raymond A. Macaluso for a site plan review approval to construct an auto dealership parking lot expansion on map 25, block 207, parcels 41, 42A, and 44, of which Sanford Realty LLC is the owner. Mr. Macaluso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Raymond A. Macaluso, owner of Westcott and Mapes Consulting Engineers, located at 142 Temple Street, New Haven. I'm here on behalf of Sanford Realty LLC, owners of Chevrolet of Milford, to present the site plan that has been submitted to your department with all the approvals from the departments in Milford, the fire department, police department, engineering department, sewer, the state of Connecticut DOT for the improvements, and we have the site plans before you, and I guess with the denial of the zone change, we're going to have to modify the plan to take out the ancillary car wash and parking, and then have that be determined later, as we'll keep it as an RO. So we will have a modification. We do meet all the stipulations for the regulations. Everything complies with setbacks, with the parking for both the dealership and all the display parking. And again, this was before you 2 years ago, which you gave a temporary approval for the site plan, which is similar to what you see. And again, the abandonment of the portion of Twin Oaks, which we will continue to go forward. And the changes are, I would assume through you, Mr. Chairman, if I could, to Mr. Sulkus, how are we going to handle this particular changes? Just take out that?
Yeah, I mean, the site plan would not include, that accessory building and any of the parking. I'd have to double check the RO zone. You know, if this were a regular R zone, you couldn't have any parking in a regular residential zone. I would just have to confirm that you couldn't use any of that lot for parking under the RO. But I mean, for the purpose of the discussion tonight, I think, you know, anything on that lot should be, you know, taken off the table, and you come back with, you know, a modification or something for that lot when you're able to come up with something.
Okay.
That answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. So what we would do, Mr. Chairman, if you approve it tonight, we'd come in with a modification, and hopefully I would be able to respectfully request an administrative sign-off by Mr. Solkis, should the board approve the site plan tonight, so we could go forward with the construction of the cul-de-sac, put in the berm for the neighbors, do everything that's according to the plans. And again, we meet all the setbacks, everything that complies, along with DOT. And the reason I'm requesting approval tonight is I found out that DOT is going to be milling and paving in US 1 at the end of this month, and we'd like to get the catch basins, the water quality structure in, everything that pertains to DOT, so before they do the paving. Otherwise, we're going to be tearing up the road, and I don't think the good citizens of Milford want to see us tearing it up the road, especially DOT. So that's what we would like to do. My client is willing to sign a waiver, also to get construction going, get the contractor on board, and move this along as quickly as possible, because again, we're under a tight window for construction schedule. If there's any questions on the site plans, I'd be happy to answer them. And we got the buffer, as you can see, all along the berm, the cul-de-sac, and then in the front, DOT has requested plantings, low plantings, along the whole frontage of the dealership, because that's in the right-of-way, and they prefer low plantings that are approved by them to maintain by the dealership, so there won't be a fence or anything.
Thank you. Mr. Solkis, do you have any other comments?
I think it's a very nice parking lot.
Okay, is there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I'd entertain a motion. Yes, Mr. Quish.
I'd make a motion to approve and put in language that indicates that the section pertaining to the lot that was at issue earlier tonight be eliminated from the site plan, and a little bit different than the way Mr. Macaluso put it. I would like to see the final plan for that lot to come in front of the board, so it meets with what our feelings were tonight.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second? Mr. Brown.
No, second the motion. I just want to make a comment as well. I also would like to see the plans without the addition of this piece of property that was in question tonight as well. So I don't know, is there some way we can make an approval upon a contingency of seeing those plans?
Well, just the board has to keep in mind that because the zone wasn't changed, you can't build anything there that doesn't comply with the zone. So you're not going to get anything on that lot at the moment. Whatever they propose doing there, if whatever that use that should comply with the RO zone, whatever our book says has to happen for that type of use, if it says you have to come back to the board because that's what you do in the RO, we will do that, obviously. But if it's an as-of-right thing, if they decide to build a house there, then you're not going to see that.
Okay, my only question would be is if we do that and whatever may go on that piece of property, that would mean basically, though, we wouldn't be able to see any landscaping plans or anything, right, that are associated with that?
Again, whatever has to be built there has to comply with the RO zone. So if it's something that doesn't require a site plan approval, like a house, you're not going to see it. If it is one of the mixed-use business sort of use that's allowed in the RO zone, depending on what the book says, if it says it's got to come to you, you'll see it. If it says that it doesn't come to you, you won't see it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
The question that I have is, when you look at the site plan, it shows landscaping to the north side of the lot that was in question tonight. So I assume that that would have been eliminated if that lot was going to be incorporated into the parking lot and have, but since it's not going to, are we going to have a new rendition of what's going to go next to that lot? I mean, is the berm going to be extended there, or what's going to happen?
Mr. Macaluso.
Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Lutz, I'd have to take a look at it, to be honest with you. Right now, we may keep it the way it is. I have to talk to my client, and we may keep the landscaping the way it is so we could continue going forward and just leave it RO with nothing there, take out whatever is not what we could do as a right, and whatever we can't do as a right, we won't put it on the plan, obviously. So we'll take a look at that. We want to move this going forward. Again, I can't address that. I'll present to him about the landscaping, keeping the landscaping because he does own that property. And again, how we take a look at it, if he's maybe put a residential office there, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, so that, you know, I don't know how we can approve this since we don't know what that corner is going to be. And to be fair to the applicant, I mean, he, you know, this is a change of thinking, so he has to have an opportunity to talk to his client. So the problem we have is we have an incomplete plan because we don't know what's going to happen in that corner, okay, as far as the landscaping and so forth next to that lot. But we do want to have the ability for them to work on the, you know, to get things done so they don't have to tear up the post road. But I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, you know, on that side of that property.
Thank you. Are there other comments? We have a motion on the table, and it has been seconded. Is there other motions, other questions on that motion? Mr. Bush?
Maybe staff could address Mr. Lutz's concern. Is there anything you can think of that makes sense?
If you approve the application tonight, it will have everything that is within the CDD3 zone, period. They won't be required, if they want to put the landscaping in, that's great, but the zone there is, it's an RO zone. The board made sure that's an RO zone, so that's not part of the plan now tonight. And they can come back, they can do whatever it is they would like to do that is in compliance with the RO zone. So you are perfectly able, if you wish, to approve the plan tonight, keeping in mind that the plan that you're approving is going to be everything that's in the CDD3 and nothing in the RO.
Mr. Quish, does that answer?
No. No. Maybe I didn't, Mr. Sulkus, if I look at the site plan, what it shows me north of the lot that was in question tonight, okay, is a row of pines. And then the next sheet shows the pines missing because, of course, then they were going to incorporate it into, you know, the main parking lot. So I don't know if the pines are going to be there or they're not going to be there.
Well, they're going to have to. There's, if we're looking at, take a look at either sheet 1 of 1, the right-of-way survey, or the lot consolidation survey, and I see the pines that you're talking about. Those pines, for the moment, are going to have to remain because those pines are the buffer to the RO zone.
Okay.
Because this is a commercial property and it's still buffering that zone. So
Okay.
they would have to maintain whatever's there now in compliance with the buffer standards. If for some reason the buffer standards say they could be thinner, I suppose they could be thinner, but right now, they're next to an RO zone and they still have to maintain whatever they have to maintain for buffers.
That answers my question.
Are there other questions on the motion? Mr. Lutz, are you good?
I'm fine.
So it's been a motion and it's been seconded. If you could, Ms. Leggett, could you just repeat what the motion was? I just want to make sure because there was a lot going back and forth. I just want to make sure of what we're voting on, that's all.
Mr. Quish's motion was by Mr. Quish requests language that the section of the lot that was in question tonight be removed from the plan and be presented to the board for approval.
Mr. Quish, that's...
Is that it?
Yes, that was it.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed?
You're opposed, John?
Okay, motion carries.
I'd like to make a second proposal. Basically, as Mr. Salkus explained several times, is that whatever is done on that particular lot, if they follow the RO zone, it will not come back to the board for any reason. The motion that was just approved says that we want that portion of that lot to come back to us, whether it meets the requirements or not, which I think is not correct. So, unless I understood the motion incorrectly, Mr. Quish is asking for that information to come back to us for that lot. And if it meets the RO zone, it doesn't have to come back to us. So why would we?
Understood. So if we go back to what Phyllis just read to us, it did not include any requirement to have the use come in front of us. It was explained to me, and I understand that if it's compliant, it's compliant. It doesn't come to us when it comes to developing that lot, if that happens.
Okay, from a procedural standpoint, we've already approved what you...
You can vote to withdraw the approval and then create a new motion.
I'm sorry, Phyllis, could you clarify, is part of the approved motion any wording that asks for the use of that RO zone lot to come in front of us? Right, so there's nothing in the motion that we approved that says anything about future use of the lot in question.
Mr. Chair?
Do that. So from a procedural standpoint, do we need a motion to take it off or just a vote?
I would, you approve the motion, I would create a new motion to withdraw the approval and then replace it with a new motion.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Lutz.
While normally, if it was a use on that piece of property that was allowed, okay, and it would typically get an administrative approval, I don't know of anything in our regulations that would stop us from saying we would like to have this particular lot reviewed by the board.
Mr. Salkus?
Unless the regulations specify that an application has to come to you based on use, you have no authority to say, oh, we want to see this. You have to follow your regulations.
other comments on this? Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Can you point out to me where in the regulations it says that this board cannot stipulate that it wants to review the use of a particular piece of property?
I can refer you to your regulations. The board does not have the ability to just willy-nilly say that, oh, in your case, we want you to come in and talk with us. Although the regulations don't require it, but we want you to come in. The regulations don't allow it.
Can you tell me where in the regulations it says that?
In the regulations, there are 3 things that bring an application to this board. That's it. Either a site plan review, a special permit, or a special exception. If you are not one of those 3 things, you are not coming to the board.
Mr. Chairman?
It also says in our regulations...
I move to withdraw the motion that was previously approved by the board.
It also says in our regulations that this board has the right to stipulate specific things on specific site plans.
All right.
If you are not subject to a site plan review, you can't make someone who is subject to something that they're not subject to.
Mr. Sulkus, if we could discuss this at another time. There's a motion there. It's been seconded. If we could take a vote on that. All in favor? Any opposed? Mr. Lutz. Okay, thank you. So we've withdrawn the previous. I would entertain a motion to address this piece of property.
You know, with all this confusion, it might be better to have the applicant come back with a new site plan that shows just what's in the CD zone and not the, and just have exactly what's going to happen in front of us.
I don't disagree, but I think there's time constraints for them to do the work that they want to do in the post road, if I'm not mistaken, and that's why they're really trying to at least get this.
That was my instinct as well, but it seems that we're going down a rabbit hole.
Grant.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the site plan as presented this evening, with the exception that the lot line change portion for lot 18 be withdrawn from the site plan, and that the staff have the administrative, or have the ability that whatever is presented for use of that property, if it meets the RO requirements, they can sign off on it without it coming back to the board. If the applicant decides to do something different with that piece of property, then according to our regulations, it'll come back to the board.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I would second the motion.
Is there discussion on this motion? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote of all in favor. Opposed? All right. Thank you. The motion is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is liaison reports. Is there any liaison reports? Seeing none. Regulations Subcommittee, Mr. Grant.
We have 2 regulations that are before the board, presented by the subcommittee. One is a while back we redid the building height regulation and reworded it. The diagrams that are in our existing regulations book basically do not cover the type of roofs that are now in the height regulation. So the first proposal is to change the I guess you want to call it diagram in the back of the book to show the different types of roof heights and to incorporate what would be considered the mean roof height and what would be the overall roof height, so that it coordinates with the regulation change that we made. The second portion is in the building height definition. The only change with that is that the end of the regulation is to add some wording that says, go see the Appendix C, Diagram 9, which would then, once you read the definition on building height, it refers you to those, to the diagrams that would basically show you by picture-wise how to calculate the building heights and the mean roof height. So the first change, or that change, would be to the definitions, to the building height, to add the reference to go back to the diagrams. The second that we're proposing is in Appendix C, Diagram 9, the roof types, to basically include the roof types and the building heights, so it has a visual reference. That's the two that we're proposing for this evening to be sent out to the different city organizations and state organizations, and so that we can get feedback from them as to what they would like to see. So I'm asking for a motion to approve the two proposed changes and to be sent out to the different regulations committees.
Okay, is there a motion? Mr. Quish?
I would move to approve these language changes.
Is there a second?
You approved it? Second.
Mr. Grant? Is there questions on the motion or questions in regard to the regulations for Mr. Grant? Okay, seeing none, there's a motion with a second. All in favor? Against? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes of 3/21/2017 regular meeting. I would ask for a motion.
I propose to approve the minutes for 3/21/2017.
Second?
Second emotion.
Yes, Mr. Brown. All in favor, or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Chair's report, I have no report tonight. Staff report?
None this evening.
Okay, motion to adjourn? Second?
Second.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
I really didn't want them because, all right, I'll take it back.
Yes, sir.
No, the reason, he probably